See more cases of using AI in elections, and especially in US, the presidential election this year happened last month was a big thing, and I wanted to see, okay, now it's time to understand how voters feel about this change.
Can you name what kind of AI they were using?
ChatGPT now is becoming almost public now. It's widespread and becoming very popular.
Aloha and welcome to our podcast, Business and AI. Today, we have a very famous researcher in AI. The topic for our podcast today is using AI in election campaigns alters voter perceptions of electoral integrity driven by partisan biases. And I will hand over to our researcher. She will introduce herself. Seulki, please.
All right. Thank you, Marco. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Seulki Lee-Geiller. I'm an associate research scientist at Yale University. So I study technology and governance and politics, and I'm very interested in how they interplay. And this is something that I'm going to talk about today.
Nice having you here. And with this, we start right away. And my first question is, what is your paper about? Just imagine, I'm probably the only one who has read it now. Our audience probably will read it after the podcast. So please tell the audience, what is your paper about?
Okay, so this paper is basically trying to examine how people see election in now we are having this AI used in election campaigns. So this study basically wanted to understand whether this appearance of election AI in election scene kind of changed how people feel about election, and this is all about it, especially in the context of the US.
Okay, that's a very interesting topic. It was very as well a pleasure to read your paper because I had so many questions during reading it. And why did you choose to study the use of AI in election campaigns and its effect on voter perceptions?
Yeah, so I've been already doing some research on technology, like basically how digital tools are used in election and also in government. But then in the beginning of 2024, we have seen the surge of AI tools such as ChatGPT now is becoming almost public now. It's widespread and becoming very popular. And we see more cases of using AI in elections, and especially in US, the presidential election this year happened last month was a big thing, and I wanted to see, okay, now it's time to understand how voters feel about this change. So that was the main motivation that I started this study, and I conducted a survey during the summer.
Oh, that's cool. Can you name what kind of AI they were using?
It really depends. So when I was trying to create some kind of so you need some material when you do the study. And when I was drafting the materials, I had to do the research, and I had to understand what exactly how exactly AI is used in elections. It really depends on candidates. So, for example, by Republican candidates, now we're talking about Trump. It's been used mostly based on deepfake images. So it's a lot of imaging and the video creation using AI. On the other hand, the Democratic candidates, back then it was Biden, and then now it was after that it was Harris. They were using AI mostly for like a robot calling. So you're calling random voters to promote yourself. And instead of a person doing it, they were using kind of a robot calls. And also some drafting messages to target the voters, depending on reflecting what they want and what they need. So it really depends how drastic it could be. That actually was a challenge in the beginning because the condition should be equal by both candidates. Like they have to use, let's say they're using AI just to draft the message, or they are using AI both in a very risky way, creating deepfake images. They have to be in a comparable condition, but I was not able to find it. Really vary. Yeah, so it really depends. It can be data analysis of what the voter wants, and it can create messages and also robocalls and deepfake images.
Okay, I see. I can imagine it was really hard to find like the same level of both yeah parties to compare, right?
Yeah, they're very different.
Can you explain what electoral integrity means in the context of your research?
Yeah, sure. It's a kind of combined concept of multiple concept, but easily speaking, it's about fair process. And whether this process is fair, whether the candidates compete fairly and it's free of corruption, whether the election process leads to the ideal results, meaning that it represents what the voter wants.
Okay, please allow me a critical question regarding politics. Is it even possible to be fair? Or,
Fair. It really
or,
depends. Yeah.
or maybe differently ask, what does it mean to be fair in a political sense? Because, as you
Mm,
may know, I'm originally German, and I know the
mm,
politicians in Germany, and before the voting, they have always their promises, and it's totally normal. What they promise is actually not at all what they're doing. So we had here one famous guy. He said, "Yeah, with me." Back then, when there was Corona, he said, "With me, there will be no vaccinations." And when he was elected, the first thing he did the vaccination mandatory. So he did the opposite.
I see. I
So
see.
now I'm thinking, okay, what does it mean to be fair in a political sense? What is it?
Yeah, it really that's a very interesting and good question, I think. So we definitely have to talk about what integrity and fair means. It really depends who we are talking about. Are we talking about fairness towards politician? Are we talking about fairness in process, some kind of system that I'm interested? I'm targeting the electoral process, whether voters think this election process and election systems are fair. So here, what I meant by fair is that everybody follow the same rule. The rule, that's something that I talk about. We don't really have any rule in terms of using AI in election for now. In the US context, some countries already adopted some rule that like preventing AI generated images by candidates, but we don't have this rule. So we don't really have this in terms of AI fairness, but overall, they have a list of rules that each candidate should follow. And as long as they follow, systematically speaking, that's fair. But when we talk about human, integrity goes deeper into this. Whether you are keeping your promises, right? Like before election, you're telling your voters that you will do anything you want. I will try my best. I'll work hard. I will put my interest behind. Always your interest first. But we have seen that many politicians have changed once they take the power. Then it's another layer of fairness, another layer of integrity. So it's a before you have to be same. So basically, a uniformed representation as a politician and uniformed representation of electoral system is it's fair in this sense in my research.
Can you elaborate on how social identity theory and technology acceptance model helped frame your research?
Yeah, those two theories are key theoretical foundation of my research. It's pretty easy. So now we talked about fairness. Social identity theory kind of highlights that by nature humans are not fair because we prefer our group, our friends, our family versus some stranger group. So they call it in group our group versus other group. So our behavior and our perception of the world and judgment of others' behavior and our behavior are kind of based on this two framework, us versus others. So social identity theory, because those in group, our groups are a source of identity. We want to evaluate, we tend to judge our group, our family members in a more lenient way. Like, let's say they both threw a trash on the
Mhm.
street. If my friend trash it, we may say, oh, maybe she really couldn't find a garbage bin. You may have this kind of a generous kind of a standard to
Yeah.
judge.
Yeah.
While some stranger, you saw a stranger walking by and then trash on the street, you may think, wow, this guy has no ethical, no environmental sense at all, something like this.
Mhm.
So this kind of highlights some level of bias because of this group. Humans are kind of a social being, right? So we
Mhm.
tend to judge behavior differently. That's social identity theory. And that goes to politics too. That's what we are going to talk about more. And
Mhm.
technology acceptance model. Now we are talking about AI in politics.
Yeah.
So technology acceptance model is basically conceived during the early age of internet. When there was internet, not everyone was happy about it. Like some people fear, as we fear AI as well. And Davis, he's the founder. He coined this model, and he was interested in some explanations, like how can we understand why people accept new technologies and why people don't reject new technologies, for example. And he highlighted two key factors. First, it has to be useful. There can be so many cool inventions and new technologies, but if it's not useful, if it's not helpful for us to work better or communicate better, people would not accept. And the second one was it has to be easy to use. Does it require extra, I don't know, degree to learn this new technology? Or does it just is it easy to just use and it's hands-on? It really depends on this. Over time, those two factors kind of extended like towards gender, apparently gender effects, whether men's are naturally more open to new technology versus women, and also the age, the younger, the digital native, like they're born with this smartphone, right? So they don't have lots of resistance, while like older generations have huge resistance to new technology. So those two theories are kind of talking about what we're trying to understand the AI in politics, and I wanted to mix this together to understand how people see this phenomenon of using AI in election.
Mhm. Earlier, you mentioned already the deep fakes. So, what are the main concerns voters have about AI, such as its use in spreading misinformation or deepfakes?
Deepfake, the people take it as entertainment, right? And I some say, oh, some people say that using deepfake in political campaign has no problem because people will know that it's fake. But the crazy part is now we are living in this information age that we have overflowing information. Like when you open your eyes in the morning and you open for example, X, and the social media, you have overflowing information, right? People really don't have a lot of time to tell whether it's fake or false. They just scroll through it, and it's going to stay in the back of your mind, right? And then you kind of generally over time, when you accumulate, you may think, oh, maybe that's true because I've seen this a lot. So that's where the misinformation and disinformation come from. So deepfake has this risk that it can create misinformation and disinformation in the political realm, which is very, very critical because it can interfere people's judgment on candidates. It can, and also some political issue. They are going to distort the reality so that people uh, make their political decision in a wrong way. So that's where the risk is. But in my research, I also asked the respondents what are their biggest concerns in terms of using AI in public sector, and their concerns were two mainly. One was automated decision making in government. They're worried that using AI will replace the government's role. So basically, we are governed by AI. That's their main concern. Because we really don't know then who to talk about, who's going to take accountability for decision, right? And the second one was using AI in election for targeting groups. So that was very interesting because we don't really have any legal framework in terms of targeted messaging. It's been seen unethical because everybody should be treated equally, right? They should hear the same message from the same candidate. But if they can change the way they frame their work depending on what I want, it's not really honest communication. So those are the interesting part that I discover. People are worried about, yes, disinformation, misinformation, but that's more in the sense of a regulation part. But on voter side, they're worried about automating government. And the second one is targeting messages. They don't want the election to be like marketing.
Okay, that's very, very interesting because my personal opinion is that the AI would do good, and I would not have any concerns. I would say, like, okay, if we would have a government which would be run by AI, in my opinion, it would be more fair, it would be more
Mm-hmm.
sustainable, it would be more effective. It would cost less, and probably it would lie less as well, because AI is normally, if it's not biased, based on facts. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
was really interesting to me when I read your paper, that this were the
Mm-hmm.
concerns of the voters. They say, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, the AI comes and actually does harm the campaign. Also, when we say, okay, we have now different messages that for different people. I mean, we as humans, if we now walk on the street and talk to a stranger, and we know within ten words if this person has probably an academic background or a non-educated background, we normally choose immediately a different language. We
Yeah, yeah.
use different words, and this is just
Mm-hmm.
fair. It's actually nice, and it's funny when politicians do this. We say, okay, this is not correct. So it was really interesting to see that the
Yeah.
voters have concerns with this, because I say, actually, it is good, because
Mm-hmm.
as a politicians, I see their problem. They have an opinion, so I just say, okay, they're now neutral. I'm not evaluating it. Just say they're neutral and they
Mm-hmm.
have an opinion. They have a message, and now they try to get the message across the country to as many people as possible, and therefore
Mm-hmm.
it has to be transferred the message, because academic
Mm-hmm.
people need other words than not
Mm-hmm.
non-educated people with no
Mm-hmm.
meaning in it. It's just facts. So it was really interesting to me that you figured out that actually those two things are the main concerns of the voters.
It really depends. You must be tech savvy person, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My research also discovered that their reaction vary depending on your understanding of
Mhm.
technology and
Yeah.
understanding of electoral processes. If you're confident that you know what's going on, you're less concerned about this change. But the majority of population, especially in US, they are not really familiar with this process. It's becoming very, very complex for lay people to understand and keep up with, especially the AI. They must have heard a lot, all this heated discussion, but they really didn't have a chance to sit down and to understand what it is. So I think that's what the concerns lie, especially for people who are not really tech savvy and um, in different from politics, but also the targeted messaging can have benefit too, as you mentioned, because it if it's changing the style of talking to someone with the same contents, I personally don't see any problem either. Like it's like you're talking to your daughter and you're talking to, I don't know, your coworker. The same thing, but then in a different style. I think that's really um, I think that's an effort that we should kind of value because you want to communicate better. But when the contents change, the problem lies uh, because of this easy access to data of individual voters. We really know what they want, right? So you frame your political mess, your contents, your policy agenda to target those groups. Let's say you need, like, I don't know, thousands of more voter support, and you're pinpointing the target group and to analyze what they want, and you come up with the policy, what they want. Then is it fair? Like, what about the rest of the group? Why don't you do the same research on other groups, what they want? Like, why do you look deeper into what they want? It's politically motivated, and those are not really uh, democratic purposes. It's more like a strategic and a pragmatic purposes, right? It's more like a marketing. I think that's where people are concerned. But in terms of the government, I think that's true. Like some people who understand how the technology works and what kind of benefit, especially when you have experienced that using technology had helped your work, you have positive perceptions about this, right? But then people who struggle to learn new technology, most of them are like, oh, now it's a smartphone, and the next one is AI. What is it? Like for example, like older generation, they may feel tired of this, and they kind of lead to some stress and anxiety. And then I think that's why we're going to talk later, or probably about educating the public in terms of new technology is important because they have to understand what the deal is so that they can form very healthy opinion about the change so that they can also have a very insightful suggestion from their end as well.
Mhm, mhm. How does the identity of the political party using AI influence voter trust?
Yeah, so it relates to the social identity theory that I talk about. Everything is us versus others, right? So in US, you have two party system, mostly Republican and Democratic parties, right? So if you are Republican Party supporter, you tend to view candidates from a Democratic Party less legitimate. And that's the bias that we are talking about. Now we are talking about the same behavior, which is using AI. We both use AI, but then when other party use AI, you may think it's unfair. It's going to have a bad impact. While your party candidate use AI, you say, "Wow, he's an early adopter. He's tech savvy. He's using advanced technology."
Yeah.
So that's where the party identity can play in this. That was my motivation. It may play in this area too, and it turned out to be true um, from the data.
Okay. Mm, how did you design your online experiments to ensure they represent the US voter population accurately?
Yeah. So I use a stratified random sampling, meaning that you recruit participants based on some ratio to reflect the ratio of the general population. I care about race and political party. I wanted the 50-50. And also, what else? Age, race, and also gender too, because gender is a key player in technology acceptance behavior and also political behavior. So based on this ratio that we have in mind, I hire a research company to ask to create some kind of quota. So you have to have a 50-50% both party and 50-50 both gender plus other gender category and also the racial composition should be similar to what we have in the general population. And then I had four different treatment groups, and I also allocate them based on the similar quota as well, age, and political identity, gender, and and also those race. So it's called block randomization. So basically, I try to control the randomization process in a way that it's a small US, right?
All right. You explored how AI alters perceptions of electoral integrity. What specific aspects of integrity were you most interested in measuring? For instance, like fairness, authenticity. If I know it right, you
Yeah,
measured five: fair
yeah.
competition, targeting messaging, authenticity, free
Mhm.
of fraud, and representativeness.
I selected those five criteria to measure electoral integrity. So when you say fair competition, free of fraud, which is corruption, and the representativeness, those three are very fundamental elements that's been suggested in a study for so long. But I added two additional criteria that was targeting messaging and also authenticity. So basically, I wanted to see since people are worried about targeted messaging with the emergence of AI, I wanted to see how it actually affects them. I wanted to see whether it has some effects. And the authenticity means whether the message feel genuine. So I think it touched down on some kind of psychological relationship with the political candidate. I wanted to see now we have this technology mediates the communication, right, between the candidate and the voters. I wanted to see how voters perceive this mediation. Do they see this to improve their, as you said, targeting messaging to tone down, I don't know, like change your style to communicate better. That's a genuine, it's a positive effect, or it can be negative effect because they want the direct communication human to human, then it can be negative effect. So I added those two are particular interests that I had because it's kind of new in the context of AI. And we found interesting finding too.
How did you measure changes in voter perceptions before and after exposure to AI campaign scenarios?
Yeah, that would be wonderful if I can change before and after. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, in the treatment experiment, you cannot do it. I basically took the very conventional treatment experiment design that's used in medical studies, for example. So you cannot really measure because you cannot control. Once you measure in the beginning, you let's say you ask questions about electoral integrity with the AI, and then you ask again. You kind of give them heads up. So you intervene their thoughts already. So the outcome measure after asking before is not really true. So what people usually do is you recruit a large number of sample and you divide them. So those are not the same people. I have four treatment groups, and they're all different people. And then I try to control the possible factors, like other factors that influence this dynamic: race, age, gender, political ID. And I create kind of a similar condition in terms of demographics and uh, and the number too. And then I control that, and then I give similar information with a little twist. And this little twist is something that I want to understand. Like, uh, this is the point that I'm interested in. Whether this element, little twists, have a little effects or big effects on their outcome measures. So I was not able to measure change before and after, but I was able to see how they react differently with the assumption that they are similar similar composition of groups.
Very nice. You divided your participants into groups based on scenarios like in-party or out-party AI use. What were
Mhm.
these groups and why were they important?
Yeah. So basically, as I told you, control is very important because if you don't control, your finding may not be what you're trying to understand. Like for example, um, I wanted to see. I wanted to see two main things. First, I wanted to see whether when AI used in election, it can change their perception about election. So the group A is the control group didn't have any indication that AI was used. And they got the little letter from the candidate. They don't know which candidate was, and we try to make it impossible to guess which party it was. So it's a very generic message letter from the candidate, and they don't know who it is. They don't know AI was used or not. So that's a control group A, and we had a control in the treatment group. That's B. You tell them AI was used to draft this letter, but we don't tell them which party was it. So here, comparing group A and B, you only have difference in terms of AI was used or not, right? So when you compare the outcome, you get the treatment effects of using AI in general. And group C uh, got the same letter from the group B, but then I told them, so your supporting party use AI. So in the beginning, we asked them which party they support, and if they say Democratic Party, we gave them the material saying that. So them I'm the Democratic Party candidate, and I use this AI to draft this letter. And if it's Republican, we give them Republican material. So it's in party aligned. So it's aligned with your supporting party, and AI was used. So when you compare group A and C, you get to see the difference of AI used by your supporting party. And group D is the opposite. So when you support Democratic Party, we give them Republican Party message. And when you support Republican Party, we give them Democratic Party message. And when you compare group A, which has no indication of AI, no indication of whose party it was, with D, you have the effect of our party AI use. That's how you compare. So you have you gradually change the condition, and then you compare with other group to test the effects.
Okay, I see. Thanks for the explanation. Your results showed AI use had minimal effects on most criteria, but raised concerns about targeted messaging. Why do you think targeting stands out?
Yeah. So going back to this comparison, when I compare general AI use and no AI was used, I didn't see any statistical change. So except for targeted messaging. Um, let me just go back to so when you see the table for if you can show later, I don't know if it's easy to see. So under AI use effect, you have to check for the sign of stars. Only targeting a message has a statistically meaningful effect. And although when you compare with other condition like in-party use, out-party use, it's minimal, but still it's big compared to other criteria. And I think it reflects their underlying concerns about using AI for targeting voters. And I think the voters are concerned that AI will kind of manipulate them. So basically, you are giving too much power in the hands of political candidates. So it's like you have this unequal power in terms of information access, right? We don't have information about those candidates, but candidates will have information about who we are. It makes voters vulnerable, and there comes power imbalances. I think it reflects this aspect.
Mhm. Okay. When voters' own party used AI, perceptions of fairness and authenticity improved? Why do you think voters trusted their party's use of AI?
Actually, all five criteria, including targeted messaging, improved. That's interesting. Because I was actually thinking either kind of discourage them because they may want person to person communication. But then I was actually thinking deeper. It's not really research based. There was no evidence. It's just my interpretation based on observations of change over time. When I first designed this study in the beginning of 2024, not everyone was using ChatGPT, for example. But this year has taken a drastic change over time, right? So every month was different in terms of AIC and AI development and how it kind of changed people's experience with AI, right? So I was thinking, so I conducted this research during summer, around June and July. I think even it reflects their excitement about AI's potential. So voters are increasingly understanding and observing the potential of AI to be used to improve some problem in public sector, in politics, for example, especially when AI is used by their own party who they trust. So that's my interpretation. They're excited that AI may improve election only it's used by someone they can trust.
So it's basically based on the human trust because they
It
trust
is.
someone they know. They
Yeah.
believe if this person use AI, it will help.
Yeah, that's actually reflecting so many things, especially in terms of technology too. The psychological distance, meaning that how close you feel with someone who's controlling the technology, really affects your acceptance or rejection. So let's say if you trust Elon Musk, who's making this car, you may trust this car. But if you don't trust, you may feel like, I'll choose something else just in case, right? This is how humans behave in terms of accepting new technology. And it can also resonate with social identity theory, right? You tend to see it's the same technology, but you see that if it's used by your friends or your supporting party, it's going to create a good effect. While if it's used when you see this out party AI use effect, it becomes negative, which means they reduce their expectations about election integrity when our party is using AI. So that's interesting finding, like how biased humans are in terms of seeing technology and the impact of technology used by who.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually my next question because conversely, when an opponent party uses AI, perceptions of fairness and authenticity declined. So now I can ask what drives this skepticism.
Yeah, well, although not as much as this a bias towards your supporting party, right? In all criteria, we saw meaningful change, while our party used, we only see like few criteria. So I found it very interesting. They less worry about this negative effects. But before I move on to the fairness and authenticity, I wanted to highlight the targeting messaging because the effect size is the biggest compared to general AI use and in-party use. When our party use AI, people generally see that they're going to use it for targeting voters, meaning that they're worried if you're, let's say you're a Republican and if a Democrat use AI, you're worried that they're going to target you to support them. So that was the interesting part. But the other part, the fair competition and authenticity, I think kind of related. Since our party, they think our party will use AI to manipulate voters. That's why it's not fair. They don't think it's fair competition because they have this distrust toward our party candidate that they may use unethically. and authenticity too. Like since you're using this tool, you're not really genuine. You're crafting your message to target the group to support you rather than you genuinely care about what I want. So I think it's all related aspects.
I can imagine that in the future, AI can even help to bridge the gap between parties because it seems like both of them do not think very positive about each other by using the newest technology. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
the AI in this case can help to give them an understanding that both of them are actually using it the same way. This would either mean
Mm-hmm.
they're both not good or they're both good.
Mm-hmm.
And now, because this is a positive podcast, we think they
Mm-hmm.
do both good. And AI actually could help them to understand, look, the other party is using it also in a good way as you do. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually a very fair point, and we see some segment of the population see that way. When you see the figure 6 or figure 7, it gives you the detailed group and how they are sensitive to this effect. Um, for example, fear fraud. So political ID, the figure 6, when you see the political ID independent group, um, when our party use under our party AI use effects, they think when our party use AI, it's going to improve fear fraud, meaning that it's going to reduce corruption. So political ID independent group under our party AI use effect, they rather see that when they use AI, when other party use AI, they're going to be less corrupt. So as you can see, when you are less biased in terms of partisanship, an independent group is less biased, right? You tend to see the AI will kind of mitigate this tension, partisan tension, and then it's going to make people more transparent and fair. So yeah, fair is some section of the population see this way.
Okay. If do understand your chart right, then we can say that American Indian or Alaska Native, they are very positive because for fair competition, right?
No, this one is targeted messaging. So it's yellow, so that's targeted messaging. So they're extremely concerned about targeted messaging, meaning that those groups are minority, right? Politically, they're not really important. They have been under less attention, so they're fearing more. It's really, really red, right? They're fearing more about the possibility they'll be used, they'll be targeted for someone else's interest, political interest.
Okay, so they're very concerned about it.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
All right. Did gender, race, or income levels show any unique patterns in their reactions to AI in elections?
Yes, it did. That was a very interesting point. Maybe we can stay in figure 6. When you see the age group, the 65 plus old and older group, when you see all party AI use, they're very concerned. So they tend to think when our party use AI, the election is less fair. In terms of fair competition and authenticity, and when you see our party effect when using AI, so basically I'm comparing group B and D to see the refined aspects of all party effect, like some all party biases, controlling that everyone is using AI. The negative effects is even stronger. So particularly, yeah, can you imagine? So they generally have this negative it's called negative partisanship, meaning that you tend to be more critical to all party behavior. So negative partisanship is stronger to this group, 65 plus. And also when you see gender, in terms of in-party AI use effect, they both think it's going to improve elections, while they still think it's going to increase the possibility of targeted messaging. But when you see our party AI use, while male group does not really have negative effects, they don't really concern much about other negative effects when our party use AI. Females are extremely concerned about the fair competition and authenticity when our party use AI. And that kind of reflects their general attitude towards technology, right? Males are more excited about new technologies, while female, they care more about social issues too. And but when you see our party, the last column, our party effect when using AI, both gender group cities, it's going to create less authentic messaging. So those are the difference in terms of gender and race. We talk about American and Indian or Alaska Native. And white group is interesting because they have strong positive partisanship, meaning that uh, they tend to view when they tend to think they're when they're in party use AI, it's going to create a positive effects, while all party use they have a negative effect.
Based on your research, what recommendations would you give to political campaigns considering AI use? Answer only if you can, because actually you also could consult those parties and make some money with it. Or now you give just one advice for free and then they hire you.
Yeah, I think I will have to first ask what their intentions are. Like if they are um, genuinely trying to understand what the voter wants and try to craft their policy agenda based on this to better reflect. I will definitely encourage them to use AI and data analysis and the simulation and impact calculations. But if they are interested in, let's say, targeting group, I may have to conduct additional research to advise them because, as you said, that it may be seen as negative, but some may think it may not be negative. So we really have to understand the puzzle. But what else can we do? The intention of this research was more focused on crafting regulations, so the government side rather than supporting the political party. So if I can consult the regulator, those policymakers, I will definitely have more to to talk about because we don't really have any universal standard in terms of using AI in election yet. Some countries, for example, this year during general election in Korea, they passed a law that political candidates should not use any deepfake AI generated images because it's going to stir some disinformation. But it's not really established yet. So this is something that I see that we really have to work first, then concerning the particular political parties, they're doing absolutely good job understanding the potential and the benefit of using this technology to get more votes. But the intention of this research more aligned to how we can how we can create a fair rule so that we can all share, we can minimize uh, some risk because what's the point of winning an election now and it undermines democratic process and democratic communication? Um, it may you may still see the value if you just think about some small groups' interest, but when you open up yourself, like you're eventually you have your supporter that you're in group, but then if you get elected, our group is also your public, right? So yeah, I have not much to say to political parties, how they should use, they are doing good job, they are doing very creative jobs. But what I'm interested in is how we can create some um, some safe regulations so that while we are maximizing the advantage from this technology, we don't really want to manipulate the voters and undermine democratic processes.
Mhm. What role do you see policymakers playing in regulation AI in elections to ensure fairness and transparency?
I think that their role is critical, and I think they should act fast. I know it's ongoing efforts. If it becomes a standard, let's say we have already gone through this presidential election using AI with no standard rule, it becomes precedents, right? What we want to regulate and kind of control its negative effects before it becomes custom. So I think their role is really critical. And one thing that I um, wanted to highlight from this finding is people concern more about targeted messaging. So we really have to think about what does it mean when we talk about targeted messaging. Is it something that Marco you mentioned? Is it a good thing to understand better about the voters and to communicate better, or is it a bad thing? Does it really create information imbalances, right? We are being seen by the candidates, right? While we don't know much about them. So does it create additional power imbalances? And then I don't think that's really democratically uh, ideal. Why? Because we want this election to be the tool to understand what the voter wants and to elect someone who can represent the needs. So I think their role is very critical. They have to understand the conceptual distinction. Like they have to basically think well, delve into well, and draw the safe line. When you draw the thick line, it can kind of cause a backfire, right? Because we still want this potential to help our election to be better. But there are some kind of clear line in terms of a deepfake, for example. I don't see any good coming out from this other than just laughing about it. But not everyone, again, not everyone has time to judge, and it's kind of creating the fatigue, political fatigue. Like instead of paying attention to the actual problem, we are kind of focusing on some gamification. It's called gamification, meaning that you're making it as a game. So I think there was some distinct concern that we really have to address immediately, while at the other area we can still try to see how it evolve and try to tame later.
Mhm, mhm. Do you think AI could eventually enhance electoral integrity, or will it always be viewed with skepticism?
I think the skepticism will decrease as we did with our internet and our smartphone, for example. People, I remember some of I don't know, my dad's friends complain about the feeling they don't feel anything when they touch the smartphone, but now everybody has kind of have a no choice, right? So over time, I think it's going to be taken for granted to have AI later. And before that, we really, when it happened, when it becomes like it's a normal thing, we are too late to be critical, right? To reverse back the trend is really, really difficult. So now we are at the very, very critical juncture to think about all the possible scenarios, whether it's helpful, how we can use help in a helpful way, how we can minimize some kind of unintended consequences. It's the time that we really have to make a very fine and long list of scenarios, and we have to make a measures. So depends what kind of efforts we are going to put in before it become normal thing. Um, when you can adopt some kind of a regulatory measure in terms of election to make it fairer, and to reflect better what the voters are worried about. I think it's going to enhance electoral integrity. I think there are lots of powerful benefits that we can expect. For example, we see lots of like a big portion of a population being indifferent from this political issue, and they don't really have time to study and do research and have formed their informed, educated opinion. But with the tool, AI tool, we can definitely ask them, can you just create this, like, can you just interpret these documents and summarize in a lay people's language? And the lay people language, it's easier for most of the people to understand the politics. So we can enhance the voter understanding of the political matters and public matters so that they can form more informed opinion. And that's going to be reflected, hopefully, in the healthy democratic process by the political candidates. And then we have this very virtuous political cycle in democracy. So it really depends. But yes, it's going to be viewed with less skepticism for sure. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what we are doing in the meantime.
You mentioned earlier that people are getting more and more adapted, or at least they get to more and more in touch with AI. Imagine you would do your research again in 5 years, and we just say the adaptation, or at least getting in touch with AI, would increase at the same rate as we would have now. Would your research then show different results? And if so, what do you think? What would it show?
That's actually a very good point because the reason that I timed the research before election was exactly because of this. Before people get used to this AI, when you think it's a common thing, you become less critical, right? You think less about this. So I wanted to see this before election too. When they know the result, they kind of have a different opinion. Before it become a common thing, the AI. So yeah, definitely there will be different results, I think, and I think the result will be different in other countries too. For example, in South Korea, the majority of populations are tech savvy. They're very open to new technologies. I don't think anyone who is very particularly critical about this. But and also the party system is different, and they have different regulations. So I think it really depends on the context, which country you're looking at, and what time frame we are looking at. Yeah, definitely. In the future, I'll be more interested in looking at how AI affect uh, public discussion. Like it's called public sphere, like where people discuss political issues and public issues. It used to be just a bar or some cafe, right? A long time ago before online community. But now everything kind of moved towards online. It's a social media, online community, this forum. We have this digital public sphere, and I'm already concerned about the possibility that somebody use AI to manipulate their discourse, right? And such discussion is really, really important part of a democracy because it's their opportunity to unpack and learn about public affairs and then kind of form their healthy and educated and processed opinion. And that opinion is really, really critical because this is the base for democracy, right? Democracy is about representing what people need. But if you don't give them opportunity and if you don't give the safe space to discuss it, the opinion will be very shallow and it's going to be changing every kind of a moment, right? So I think it's really important to secure public sphere as public, free from interference. So that's something that I'm interested in. For example, if you're using AI, you can automatically detect, let's say, people favor for less text. and you have this agenda that we need to increase the tax rate for lay people, not rich people, let's say. Um, and you want to make it look like it's what people want, then you can definitely use the AI bots to add some kind of discussion in between of the discussion to divert their opinion. For example, this is what's happening in entertainment already, right? You're kind of intervening the fan opinion by creating some different opinion as a majority. So I think it's really difficult to detect in online environment. And as the AI is developing faster and faster, and I think that's a very, very critical threat to a healthy deliberation in democracy. And that's something that's going to take a lot of time and resources because it involves not only the survey, it involves the observation and some intervention that's not really unethical, right? So that'll be a good research opportunity for me and also for other researchers who are interested in this AI's impact on politics and democracy.
Do you think voter education about AI could mitigate some negative perceptions associated with its use?
Yes, to some extent. So, for example, if you don't know what we are talking about, people tend to form fear, and that fear tend to lead to negative perceptions, right? Um, and some fear is kind of a healthy because it keeps you prepare for some kind of threat, but unhealthy fear, which has no evidence or no ground, I don't think it's really, really helpful because it can be subject to political manipulation. So we really have to enhance public literacy in terms of AI. There has been lots of programs and initiative all over the world, Sweden, and Singapore and South Korea, they're trying to adopt this AI education in the regular curriculum and also provide some free online program. I think it's really important to kind of adjust those uneducated or like a how to say unconditional fear into a level that you are informed. So into an informed level of fear. But I think the goal should not be to reduce their negative perceptions. Negative perception can indicate important direction for policy and our public measures, as long as those negative perceptions have some ground, like a fair evidence and fair like reason. I think that's the point that we can do with the AI education. We can kind of uh, blow the bubble of fear or blow the bubble of hyped expectations, and then we kind of cool down, and then we kind of meet in the middle, and then this is where we have to build our next action plans.
Now you talked about the group which has fear. I'm quite sure there are also the group which do not fear, they are more interested in. How about them?
Hmm. Yeah, true. So that's something. If their expectations and like excitement about this AI's potential is based on the ground, like based on some facts and some information, I think that's important indication too, right? So they kind of show the area that we can kind of improve election and democratic process as well. But if the hype excitement is based on just excitement without
Mhm.
any concrete reasons, I think that's also a bubble that we should kind of try to mitigate because governance shouldn't be run by bubble, right? We really have to. That's why the civic education has been highlighted throughout the history that we really have to educate people so that they can understand what's going on so that they can form their own opinion that can represent them better.
how might your findings apply to countries with different political systems or less partisan electorates?
Yeah. As I said, the result will be different. I think, especially um, the result from the U.S. indicates a strong partisan biases, right? And the partisan biases are strong when there are only two party system, right? So it's us versus others. But when it become like us versus many others, I think the result will be slightly different in terms of our party AI use effect because you have multiple, you kind of have to distribute your concerns over many different parties versus one party, or you can multiply your concerns by the number of other parties. I really don't know. This is interesting question that we can explore in other countries.
I see. How do partisan biases play a role in how voters perceive AI in campaigns?
Um, Partisan biases. As I said, partisan biases basically means our party is the best, and the candidate from our party will do everything ethical, everything fair. While other party, I'm not so sure about that. This guy, I'm not so sure about whether he's going to follow the rule, election rule, for example. So it's going to. So our study kind of show it's true. They tend to be more critical about other party. So partisan biases uh, basically shape the way they see election, especially with the AI.
Can we say those are blind followers?
Mm, Blind. Some may be blind, but not all. I think it's just what human beings are. That's why I wanted to relate to social identity theory because this tendency has been seen not only in politics but in other aspects within organization too. You're like there has been lots of study so that you're working in a big company and you cannot possibly interact with everyone, right? Let's say so you form your own group. You have close friends, close co-workers versus other groups. So people tend to see this in a different way in other setting in society. So I will say this is not blind. This is just a human nature.
All right. Can we say more critically that once someone is convinced, this person just trusts and believes basically everything what comes after?
No, actually, the crazy point that I found during this study
Yeah.
is people have positive partisanship and negative partisanship, but
Hmm.
then such partisan bias can change depending on the targeted messaging.
Ah.
So for example, uh, so there was an experiment that you are showing some kind of message that's not really aligned to, so your message coming from your own party doesn't really touch what you're interested in, or it feels less affectionate, you can kind of reduce the positive partisanship.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean that you don't support, but it kind of says that, oh, I don't want to blindly trust you anymore because you're like this. In the meantime, when our party uh, writer like give you a message that's exactly what you wanted to hear, your negative partisanship, meaning that your distrust, your bias that you're gonna see our party less ethical, less legitimate, kind of a reduced too. So that's the crazy effect that we have to pay attention when we look at this targeted messaging. It can actually alter their biases, partisan biases. So maybe this opens to the room that you mentioned, that it can be the room that we can mitigate the polarization, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it would be better. It would be better. More understanding is normally helpful.
Yeah.
Suki, if you had unlimited resources, what future experiments or studies would you want to conduct to expand on, for instance, this research?
Um, yeah, I wanted to do some research that I talked about earlier on the public sphere.
Hmm.
I want to I want to be in this public sphere, like online community, for example, and to see how people are susceptible to AI's manipulation.
Hmm.
And I want to like understand the behavior dynamics, whether people can tell if it's AI or people can kind of see. And then I want to work on the subsequent research to like with the potentially IT experts or like someone who's very knowledgeable in terms of AI technology to come up with the kind of a tool that we can mitigate this, like some kind of a measure, public measures that we have to implement so that it doesn't become like now we are seeing a lot of cyber threats, right? Cybersecurity is something that's becoming out of our hand. And before it becomes like this, I think we really have to understand what's going on and what will be the potential risk and also potential benefit of using AI in facilitating public discourses.
Wow, nice. Suki, thank you so much being here at my podcast. And I would like to give you the last words. What you gonna say to the audience?
Oh, thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to kind of casually talk about my research. It's kind of a very new, and I didn't have a lot of opportunity to kind of talk about some background story too. I think it was really nice opportunity. I hope it was not too academic. I hope I try my best, but I hopefully, but I don't know. Like what can I say? If you're interested in AI's impact on politics, and if you're genuinely concerned, I will encourage you um, to be sensitive about the changes instead of just seeing for fun. We kind of have to adopt a critical lens to look at what's going on in politics with the AI. And also, I want to encourage you to use AI tools to enhance your civic power. Try to understand if you think some matters, like let's say tax or immigration issues are too complicated, you don't know what's your opinion, then try to use AI tools to help you informed so that you can enhance your, I don't know, civic power and civic knowledge. And I don't know, like if you have any comments or opinions, any interesting episodes of your experience related to AI in politics, you can feel free to send me emails or connect me. So let's be connected.